All right, it looks like we're good to go here. I see some gameplay. Hey there, everyone. Welcome to tonight's show. This is the Xbox Roundtable Podcast, show number 248, if I'm not mistaken. A place where we can talk about all things Xbox and gaming topics from, well, just in general, really. I'm your host, Invader, and I have to say, I'm looking forward to everything slated to cover for tonight. Microsoft recently released a 33-page rebuttal fighting back against the UK's CMA. We'll go into that. Also, we will touch on what else? Konami recently having a live event for the Silent Hill franchise and announced some new games. Also, we will give our thoughts on the newly released A Plague Tale Requiem. A few of the panel have played it, and yeah, we'll give our impressions on it. But first, let me introduce everybody on the panel, and I will start off with Mr. Crusader. Hey, how you doing?
I'm really good. I helped more friends move this week, as is now apparently a monthly tradition of mine. But I also got to play the Forgotten City before it leaves Game Pass. Totally recommend everyone try that before it leaves Game Pass. I actually got the full 1,000 gamers score, which is something I don't normally do for a ton of games.
Hmm.
But like it's that good. And
Oh,
other than that, I've been playing Plague Tale Requiem, which will be a Game of the Year candidate, guaranteed. It is excellent, simply excellent. And I've been playing it on PC because it has Xbox achievements on PC, and I have a 3080 Ti, so I figured I could escape the 30. Oh, I would have 40 FPS on console because I have a 120 hertz TV. But yeah, I figured I could escape it, and I've been playing it at 4K 60 Ultra on PC, which has been excellent. And then I've also been playing some Pokemon White 2 in preparation for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. I'm trying to complete my living decks, or at least get as close to as complete as I can before it drops. Which, for those who don't know what a living dex is, it is not just all of the full evolutions of every Pokemon, but it's every sub evolution as well. So I want to have one of every Pokemon before Pokemon Scarlet and Violet drops, and I'm about like somewhere in like the 600 700s out of 900.
I did not realize there was that many Pokemon, but I
Oh
guess that
yeah, and
makes
then
sense.
there's regional variants and stuff too, where it's like the same Pokemon, but they're like a different type for a different region. So I'm including that in my living decks because I want like one of each of them as well.
Nice. By the way, I managed to snag a MTG Ruinous Powers commander deck.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I saw there was one on this Canadian online retailer, and I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna snag that. And I don't know why I looked at this other deck or boosters actually, the Streets of New Campina or whatever.
Streets of New Capenna, yeah, it's one of the sets in standard right now. It's
I just like the
themed around like
yeah.
gangsters. It's cool.
Yeah, I just thought it was kind of neat. It had like an Art Deco-y kind of a theme to
Yeah.
it. Kind of looked into the deck, and I was like, all right, you know what? I'll pick up a few boosters and a bundle of that too. So who knows, man? Might have some card openings to do soon.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah, I might do that on my channel. Might do that channel. But moving on down here, who else do we got? Eric
That's
Shockley.
why I'm on my show. I vacuum. I gotta grab something upstairs. So that's why he introduced me first.
We can hear you, pal. We can hear you. Let's see, Eric Shockley, buddy. How you doing?
Good. Ready to get into these topics here. Some of the reviews or some of the takes on Plague Tale. I haven't jumped into the sequel yet, but I did finish the first one, which is really good. So definitely excited to jump on Game Pass and try that sequel. But glad, definitely interested to hear everyone's take that's played it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. As we were saying before the show, I haven't played the first one, but I started to play the second one. So we'll get some different views. I yeah, it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be interesting. I think a lot of people on the panel have played it. Moving on down here, General MLD, buddy. How have you been the past week?
Hey, doing pretty good here. Yeah, just splitting my time between scoring about halfway through that. Started on Plague Tale 2. Gonna have my impressions there soon enough. and also started Persona 5 this weekend. So a lot of gaming going around here. We are spoiled as Xbox fans, and yeah, can't wait to get into the conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I gotta finish scoring as well. I'm pretty much at the end. I just gotta fight this one last boss that I'm having a little bit of issues with, but I know I'm towards the end there. Who else do we got here? Oh, of course, Mr. Arizona Centurion buddy. How you doing?
Not too bad, gentlemen. It's been a good time playing some games this week. I actually finished Scorn after we finished the show Sunday night. Funny part is, I was able to crank that game out in a day. Started it Sunday morning, finished it Sunday night.
Nice.
Been trying to grind out Mass Effect 3. Closed out Leviathan DLC. Oh my God, what is the other? I'm trying
The
to do
darkness can't be breached.
Yep, a darkness can't be breached. There was also another one, and not the Citadel DLC. Oh,
Omega?
Omega. So I did Leviathan, then I did Omega, and now I'm doing the Citadel DLC. After that, I think that does it for all the DLC, and I can just close out the game and just start grinding out the main story as quick as I can. But also on top of that, I will be honest, I did not do Plague's Tale Requiem. The game that I decided to go into and I'm having a lot of fun with was Ghostbusters Spirits Unleashed, the new pretty much multiplayer game from Ilphonic, and I'm having a lot of fun with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've been very curious about that. I'm a huge Ghostbusters guy. I'm not sure how much time you've put into it so far, but would you recommend it to a Ghostbusters fan?
I would recommend it. Like at first I was like, what the hell is this? I'm already like a level 15, but there's like different levels to stuff in the game, but I would say I've probably sank already, probably about 3-4 hours into the game. But it's grown on me. I found myself the next day actually wanting to go home. It released Tuesday night, at least for me, when I was able to first turn it on after work, and then Wednesday I found myself wanting to get off work and go home and play more. It's definitely I'm finding it fun, but now there is levels to your equipment. Your proton pack has its own level, your trap has its own level. And as you use these devices, the trap is the hardest one because it only levels up when you actually trap a ghost. And as you level these devices up, you open them to have different advantages, like increasing your tethering time or making it harder for the ghost to break the tether. Keep in mind the ghost is controlled by another person. It's 4v1. Um, and that's where the ghost has actually got an extreme advantage. I mean, unless you are coordinated and you got a great team with you, the ghost has the upper hand, and you are like running around constantly just trying to stop the ghost, who can obviously fly, soar from single story to second story without having to climb anything, go through walls. The ghost is able to sabotage your proton pack, where you have to reset it, or they slime you, or you got to stop and start unsliming yourself. But also the Ghostbusters, like if you're trying to hide as the ghost, you have the PKE meter, and you got to look for where the ghost is hiding inside objects, or where they're just trying to hide in general. But there's a good amount of game mechanics to the game. But definitely don't jump into it thinking that there's going to be some massive single player campaign. There's not. There is a little bit of story. They did have Dan Aykroyd and Ernie Hudson come in and recast their roles as obviously Ray Stantz and oh my God, Winston. And so there is a little bit of story there, but as you progress the game and you level your character up, some of the story is given out to you. I'm just saying, don't jump into this game thinking that there's going to be this huge single player campaign or a campaign in general. It is definitely a very heavy multiplayer based game.
All right. All right, I'll keep that on my radar then. I mean, hey, Ghostbusting makes me feel good, I'll say that. Sorry, guys, I had to say that line. But just so you guys know, Timmy's running a little bit late, but he should be on in a little bit. And also, quick reminder that you can catch the show on a whole wide array of other video platforms. We've got a presence on Rumble that's been steadily growing, but hey, I would love to have you on there. Also, Odyssey, BitChute, and a few others. But yeah, we've been growing in a lot of other places, and we'd just love to have you join us on there. Also, guys, make sure to share out the show and give this video a like, as hey, it helps us with the algorithm, and hey, let other people know to join the show tonight. We'd love to have them all in the chat. But on that note, okay, why don't we start getting into things, talking about a game, actually. As last week we saw Scorn, this week we had the release of A Plague Tale Requiem. From what I can tell, it seems to be getting some pretty good reviews across the board. Well, except for maybe the Switch version. From what I saw, I think there's a Switch version. Anyways, I know a few people on here on the panel were interested in checking this title out, and I played it. Crusader Bud, I know you've spent some time with it. You've been excited. What are your impressions of the game?
All right, to sum it up in as few words as possible, it kicks ass. Simply put, the game is fantastic. All right. I love the game. It's one of the few, because it is horror, right? Like I don't think anyone would quite dispute that it's not a horror game. Like there's some horrific things that happen in it, right? Like it gets real. The rats are creepy as all heck, you know. And it is one of the few horror games that really makes me feel uneasy, but I can still absolutely play it, because a lot of horror games, they rely a lot on like jump scares and things like that. Like Dead Space is very jump scare heavy, but in Plague Tale the atmosphere is like super eerie and creepy, and like the thousands and thousands of rats that are on the ground all at once, like it's totally different from a lot of horror games, and that's what I really like about it. And the story is very, very, very good. It is probably one of the, as far as like real life games go, that games that are like trying to emulate like realism in their graphical settings, it's probably one of the most beautiful games I've ever played. Right? I'm more of a fan of stylized stuff, so like I think Ori, like Will of the Wisps, is a better looking game. I also think that the new Borderlands game is a better looking game, the Wonderlands game, but that's because I like the stylized stuff because it lasts longer. Because like these only last as long until someone outdoes them in a more realism looking game. But this game looks absolutely incredible. I think it's one of the most beautiful games on the market that you can play. And it goes from everything from like super bright and colorful with tons of colors and tons of stuff everywhere, to like dark and dreary and just creepy that you'd expect from like a horror game that's filled with rats. And it bounces back and forth, which is often not the case in a lot of games like this, right? Like a lot of times you'll begin and the game will be nice and bright and colorful, and then it'll swap to being so dark and dreary and sad and evil looking. And the game bounces back and forth a lot between the two, and I think that's something that I really like about it, is that the art palette is constantly changing. But it's just such a pretty game. Like in this scene right here, you can see it's like super bright and colorful on the screen right now. At the beginning of the game, and then in the next chapter, it gets all dark and disgusting and awful. But then it'll bounce back to scenes like this, and that's something that not even really the original did. The original did it maybe a little bit, but the original was like the constant progression into like the world kept looking worse and worse and worse, which was part of its theme. And like that's also part of the theme of this one, but in this one you're traveling around quite a bit more than the last one, so like the areas aren't quite as affected. And it's just so good. The combat is still a little clunky, but like it's not a game that's designed around its combat. It's designed around stealth, and you're supposed to stealth through a lot of the sections. I brute force my way through a lot of the sections because that's how I play video games. But I can get away with brute forcing stuff way better than I could in the first game. So that's a massive improvement in my opinion. But like, I thought that this game was. I think so far it is going to be in my top 3 of the year for sure.
That's interesting. That's interesting. So you don't like weird penis aliens, but you can handle rats.
No. I can barely handle the rats. And the thing about the rats is they're rats, right? Like it's not constant weird fleshy thing, if that makes sense. It's literally seeing the like human flesh in Scorn that makes me so at unease, and the constant seeing it and the fact that it's like your arms are like that and stuff. So like it never goes away. But in this, like, the rats aren't they're throughout the game, but they're not omnipresent. Like in this mission, you don't see the rats, and the rats aren't always present throughout like the entirety of a mission, because there are other threats in the game. There are other things that are happening. There's a story that's developing, and I will say this though, this game pushes it for me, right? It does definitely push it, but it's like right on that boundary of like it's at that perfect level of it doesn't disgust me too much.
All right, that's fair.
There's definitely some scenes that are but they don't last that long. Because like Dead Space 2 pushed it with the needle to the eye scene. Spoilers for anyone who hasn't played Dead Space 2 in like the 15 years it's been out. But that eye scene in Dead Space 2, if that had gone on any longer, I would have uninstalled the game. But it was just long enough, just enough, if that makes sense. And this game, I think, blends it all perfectly, where it's not omnipresent gore. There's gore, but it's not omnipresent. It's there as much as it needs to be to create a constant sense of unease, but not constantly visually there.
Now, I'm one of the ones who hasn't played the original, which I would like to, but apparently left Game Pass recently.
It did leave Game Pass.
So my loss, but hey, who knows? I might come back, right? Or maybe I can pony up and buy it.
I wouldn't be shocked if they bring it back, but I mean that's also part of the Game Pass strategy, is that like Game Pass doesn't replace buying games; it supplements buying games. And part of the marketing strategy for this is, hey, you've played this one, and now you kind of want to go back and find out where it all started, and they get you to buy it. And that is part of the whole strategy, right? Because Game Pass is built on top of a store, not replacing one. It's not like Netflix, where Netflix came in and totally replaced everything, right? Microsoft has built this on top of their store, and part of the goal is to get people to buy things in addition stuff, whether it be DLC or full-length games. I do think it'll come back. I think that this game's doing really, really well on Game Pass. It's in the top 5 on PC. I think it's number 1 on cloud right now, and I believe it's like number 6 on console, at least in the US. And I think that may get them to bring back the first one very quickly to because it's that people are liking it that much and are playing it that much. I would recommend playing the first one. If you don't, there will be some spoilers, like some of the surprises and things you learn in the first one, right? They won't be surprising to you if you play the second one first, but I wouldn't say it's like the worst thing in the world to play the second one first and then go back to the first one. The first one's a very, very good game too. Not quite as good as this game, right? But like it's almost like I think a lot of people like Mass Effect 2 more than Mass Effect 1, and all things with me goes back to Mass Effect, right? But it's not an uncommon thing to say that Mass Effect 2 is superior to Mass Effect 1. I think that this is kind of a similar thing where like this game is just like the perfection of what they started out with in the first game, and they cut a lot of the chaff with like crafting and upgrading. You still do have to do crafting and upgrading, but you learn a lot about it faster. It's quicker. It's easier. There's not as many components. They streamlined it to the point where like it's still a mechanic you have to deal with, but it's not as tedious. And so, but yeah, no, definitely I would also play the first one. The first one's also very good. Asobo is on fire, by the way. 3 fire games in like 3 years.
Yeah.
Right? They had Innocence, then Flight Sim, and now this in like I think it's like 3 or 4 years. It's incredible.
Which I think is going to bring up another interesting point maybe a little later on in this conversation. But yes, that is definitely something to note. 3 really well-received, award-winning game titles from them. Hit after hit after hit, right?
Yeah.
Now, Eric Shockley, buddy, I know you said you haven't gotten a chance to play this one, the recent one, but what did you like about the first Plague's Tale game?
Yeah, the first one, the story was pretty cool. Just the way you could kind of take out your enemies was also you kind of had like it'd give you an area, but you had all sorts of different things you could craft, but also it kind of gave you the option to go in a certain direction because at least for me, I was well short of upgrading like all my items or all my abilities, or like armor and stuff like that, or so you kind of have to share those materials to upgrade, but also those materials to craft. So you kind of had to like say, hey, is it worth it? I might not be able to craft some of these some of these items here in this next section. I'm going to go ahead and use all this materials to upgrade this thing because it's going to help in the long run. So you kind of had that cool thing where it's kind of up to you how you want to make your character somewhat. And then when you get to an area, you had multiple ways of taking out somebody. You could just snuff them out with a potion that kind of like puts them to sleep, or one that makes them take off their helmet. So then you can, throw fire on their face and like, burn them alive. Like there's so many like gruesome ways to just kind of take it out. It kind of reminded me of like Dishonored in a way, similar rat game, but where you can just kind of create chaos and do your own thing. And because you can be really creative on how you actually start taking out the enemies. So that part was really cool about it. But I think it's a slow burn because at the beginning, when you don't have much to go on, it takes a bit. But then once you get past that, like first hour or so, and start getting abilities and start getting really like, almost felt like Manhunt ish, where you're just like being savage with these people. So, but yeah, it's definitely play the first one because that way you'll have nothing spoiled going into this one. You'll have all of that backstory, and it'll probably end up being even better.
All right. That's interesting comparison there to Manhunt. I would have never expected that kind of a comparison, but good to know. Good to know. Let's see, General MLD, buddy. I can't remember. Did you say you had started playing this game, or I know you got like quite a few things on the back burner right now, but if you have, you haven't. What are your thoughts on this new release?
Oh yeah, I played the first couple chapters. I think there's like 17 chapters in the game, so I still got a ways to go. But my first impressions are, yeah, this game is amazing. I played the first game also on Game Pass. So on that note, I want to comment just how like I really believe in Game Pass discovery. I probably wouldn't have played this game if it wasn't on Game Pass, thinking it was just some maybe some average game, third person kind of thing. But because it's so accessible, you try it out, and you're just blown away by how wrong you were, by how good this game is. And I really enjoyed the first game. Story was good, gameplay was good, and this one it just seems like it's better and it takes it up a notch. The deeper gaming mechanics, you get like you get a little more lenient in your combat because in the first game, if a guard caught you, you were dead, like case closed. In this one, you get a little more of a leniency in that. And it gives you a way to handle a situation. You can go pure stealth, or you can go like a little more action oriented. It's really up to you. So I do like that. It gives the player a little more choice in how to handle the game. I like how in general the game forces you to play smart. Like when the rats come out, and you gotta like light the fires and like make your way across an area that would at first glance would be inaccessible completely. But when you get across and you figure out how to do it, you feel pretty good about yourself. Like, oh, you figured that out. You're progressing the game. It's not bad. I love period piece games. This is like 1300s France. Like I love just being taken back in time to a more simple time. Like just everything is just so primitive. It's so simple. I love it. And what is it? What else? Yeah, the puzzles, the graphics are by far a step up. Like how this is a solid Game Pass get because just the game. I don't know. This is some of the best graphics I've seen this entire generation so far. And yeah, the fact that Xbox secured it, like, good on them. And it's only for our benefit. And anyone with a passing like for this kind of game, you at least have to try it because Xbox paid, I'm sure, like some decent money for us to have the privilege to have this game at a low barrier. So there's no excuse not to try it out. Now, what is it? Crusader calls this a horror game. I call it more a psychological thriller. Like I'm more familiar with horror games. I didn't feel like true fear, but you do feel a certain, in my opinion. Of course, everyone's different, but I felt more of like a unease. You feel the tension. I feel like the music plays a big part in that. You have that scary violin that makes you feel like what's around the corner kind of thing. I do like that, and of course you see all the dead bodies and the rats. You being in that situation, surrounded by death, it doesn't make you feel very comfortable, and that's what to me makes it a little more of a psychological kind of game, which is good. So, love this game. Gonna keep playing it. Maybe I'll finish it by end of November. I'm spending my time between multiple games at once, but it's a solid sequel, and I highly recommend it.
All right, very nice. Yeah, it's interesting because I don't know. I've always had my eye on this title, but again, being in Game Pass, like there's been a lot to play recently, right? Whether it be Game Pass or just games that I've just had on my own back burner, the backlog. But this one caught my eye, and yeah, I gotta admit, I'm impressed. The voice acting is pretty good. Gameplay so far is fun. I mean, I'll admit I'm not huge on like hiding in games a lot of the time, but yeah, so far I don't know, I find the story interesting, and the game is beautiful. So it has a lot going for it, in my opinion. I did see some FUD about it when the first reviews started coming out for it about that the frame rate was low, but then I don't know. It seems to be refuted, anyways, depending on what mode you're on.
It's 30 or 40. It's 30 on 60 hertz and 40 on 120 hertz.
Yeah, like to me that doesn't really factor because this isn't a fast-paced kind of game. It's not like a fighter or like a racing game, like or an FPS where like your split-second controls matter. This is it's a slower-paced stealth kind of game where you're moving very slowly and deliberately. So in that regard, I think it depends on the genre. In this case, I think it's okay because it's such a slow-paced kind of game. It's a linear kind of game where you just take in the surroundings at your own pace. It's not a fast-paced game. So I think it's okay in this situation.
Okay. All right. Hey, fair enough. Moving on over to you, Centurion. I know you haven't touched this game. Are you interested in giving it a shot at some point, or have you played the first one at all?
At some point I'll play it. I haven't played the first one yet. I really need to. Quick kind of like fact here. I take full advantage of games being in Game Pass, and what I mean by that, retailers have this big old butt soreness about something being in Game Pass because that means that for some reason people aren't going to buy the damn game, and they'll like go out and clearance the thing at your local Walmart for like $15. I happen to find a physical copy of Plague Tale's Innocence, and it's actually still here in the plastic. Picked that thing up literally for like, I think it was like $15 physical, like right when it first came out. So I have the first game here. I know I need to unwrap that thing and play it. I've heard such great things about it. I know Asobo does good things in gaming, kind of like I still need to play Hellblade, and I actually own the digital version of Hellblade. But that was also before Hellblade even came to Game Pass. That being said, I guess, at least for me, just because a game is in Game Pass doesn't mean that it's not worth my time purchasing. I want to be able to own the titles that interest me. And when I get so that way when I do get around to playing them, I can play this. I've seen a lot of gameplay. I've heard a lot of people talking about it. I know it's a game that I will enjoy playing. It just happens that I work so much that I stick with the games that I'm already playing. And, you know, I already had pre-ordered Ghostbusters at that point. So I sank my own money into wanting to play a game. So that's kind of like where I putting this game on the back burner. But it's good to hear that people are excited about it. They're having a great time with it. It's good to know that Asobo, once again, doesn't just take things at face value. They're always willing to improve and build upon a game that's already been established, especially with adding on to the game mechanics, creating different environments with more color and detail to them compared to the first game, according to Crusader and General MLD. Definitely something that I'm going to be looking forward to. I just don't know when I'm going to get around to playing it.
Fair enough. And hey, sounds like we have a similar issue right now. Too much to play at this point, and working very hard as well. But something that we touched a bit on earlier, guys, this is a very successful studio right now, Asobo. They did very well with Microsoft Flight Simulator on both PC and Xbox platforms. Then you have both A Plague Tale Innocence, the first game, and now the new release of Requiem. Yeah, they've certainly been on a roll here. So I guess the question comes up is, is this a studio that is likely gonna get a lot of eyes on them for acquisition?
So,
Sorry,
okay.
you go.
I was gonna say, so they really have seemed to want to stay independent to the point where they've been accepting private equity firms investing in them. They are a private company; they're not publicly traded, but they do allow for parties to invest into their company. And there's a European equity firm that owns like 30% of them. So I would not reckon that it would necessarily be an easy target for anyone to necessarily move to acquire them, because they are positioning themselves in such a way that they have kind of the same kind of economic freedom that would come from being owned, but also being able to be independent and choosing their like who they work with and things like that. If anyone was going to buy them, I would actually guess that it would be shoot, who's the developer? Focus. Is it? They're just Focus Entertainment now, right? They're no longer Focus Home. If I had to guess, that publisher would move to acquire them, because they're like one of their most successful external partners. They're like a French entertainment publisher. They're gonna be a huge publisher moving forward.
Yeah.
They keep releasing good stuff. They're publishing the next what is it? Not the Space Marines game. Space Marines 2, they're publishing the next one of that. They published Greedfall, and they're publishing Greedfall 2. I think they own Deck 13.
Yes.
So if I had to make a guess as to who would be looking at them, I mean, of course Microsoft's looking at them. Microsoft's not really in a position to buy other things right now. They're just not.
Well, maybe not right now. But...
Yeah, not right now. But if I had to guess, if someone was going to get them, it would be Focus Home. But Focus Home has a great relationship with Microsoft, and I wouldn't like. They are the ones who, Focus Home's the ones who put this on Game Pass to begin with, right? That's just the case. They're the publisher. They handle distribution, and they Focus Home itself seems to be a great partner with Microsoft, because they seem to really like putting stuff on Game Pass. The Plague Tale Innocence was on Game Pass for the longest time. Greedfall, I think, is still on Game Pass. I wouldn't be shocked to hear that Greedfall 2, once it's a little closer to its launch, I wouldn't be shocked to hear that it gets announced for Game Pass. So, like, Microsoft doesn't need to own everything, and even if Focus Home got them, it would still be a great, like, it wouldn't take anything away. It wouldn't. In fact, it would probably just bring them closer. They're going to be working with Microsoft for the next forever, because I think they have a 10-year plan for updating and maintaining and making Flight Sim better. So is it out of the picture? No, but like I see Focus Home as the likely candidate.
All right. All right. Yeah. No, actually, that's an interesting, very interesting thought there. Centurion, I know you wanted to chime in. Got any thoughts?
Oh, that's where I think kind of like Crusader couldn't have said it any better. The fact that Microsoft doesn't need to own everything. I know there's all these things that Microsoft has made an offer for Osobo in the past. Apparently in the flight simulator demo that was released, or the trailer before the game came out, somehow people were using some kind of like, like, I don't want to say conspiracy theory, but some kind of way of manipulating the controls on the dashboard, saying that Osobo was like their name was in there and stuff like that, and that they were going to somehow purchase Osobo, and this was like in the controls of the plane during the demo. I don't really see that where, Asobo's doing a really good job right now. They're making a good name for themselves, and there's no reason for them to have to put themselves in the corner of being owned by any one company. I mean, like, if you want to stay a multi-platform publisher or a developer per se, you want to be able to have some of those freedoms that Crusader described. And I don't really see Asobo in a position where they're really hurting for money. They make really good games. They have a good direction going for the company, and they are very young as a developer, in my opinion. And that's where, why stop and just, sell the business off now when like you could probably go so much further. And I mean, that's where I'm at on the whole situation. Is I'm with Crusader on that. Microsoft doesn't need to own everything. Game Pass is a good avenue for every developer to use to get attention to their game. Like a lot of like General MLD is a big heavy user of Game Pass, takes full advantage of a lot of the titles that come into Game Pass, and he is the perfect consumer for developers to want to be targeting to create awareness for their title, and using Game Pass as an avenue for doing that. So there's no reason to kind of, corner yourself into having to be purchased by a company just to succeed, when literally there's now subscription services are starting to become a big deal in the gaming industry, and more developers are able to take advantage of these services.
Mm-hmm. No, well said. Well said there, Centurion. Any other thoughts, guys? Any others? Yes, no?
No, they pretty much nailed it here. I think having a good relationship is the best thing they can do. At least if they can, at least it prevents the competition from doing any like day one kind of deals that would lock out Xbox players, because it looks like they're pretty happy with whatever arrangement they have with Xbox. So that's always good news. But I feel like if they could buy someone, it wouldn't be the worst idea, because I mean they would cash in on more flight simulator revenue because it's all theirs technically. But even if they don't, it's win-win either way. They have a good relationship.
Oh, on Microsoft side, it would be a brilliant purchase. Like don't get that wrong. It's just when I think of these, I try to think of it from the companies, from the smaller companies' perspective. Like, do I want to be sold right now? If that makes sense. From Microsoft's perspective, it would be brilliant to get these people under their helm, right? They have something that the Xbox kind of lacks a little bit, which is those third-person action adventure games. This is a third-person action adventure game. It's a psychological thriller or horror, whatever you want to call it. But they're brilliant devs. So like Microsoft could probably absolutely love to own them, right? I was speaking merely from the Asobo stance.
No, you're right. In that regard, they're not ready yet. They're doing just fine on their own.
But yeah. Also, to add on, just not real quick, but not also to interrupt. This is a conversation that probably will take place later in the show. But also, developers now have to take notice about how a lot of world regulators are starting to make it to where you might not be able to be bought out. Basically, they're going to make it an absolute pain in the ass. And so it's pretty much coming to a point where developers are going to have to start really figuring out how to make themselves successful without the concept of being bought out by any company in the industry. as the end goal, because that might not be possible due to the fact that we're seeing a much heavier crackdown on at least on the tech side of businesses.
Yeah, well said there, Centurion. Honestly, Asobo is proving themselves to be a very, very good studio. Like, Plague Tale is a very interesting franchise. They've done a lot with Flight Simulator, and yeah, honestly, we'll see what's in store for them in the future. But I can see a lot of big publishers eyeing them at the moment, even the ones that, have a little bit invested in them as of right now. But yeah, guys, we will move on to some other stuff. But check out Plague's Tale 2. It's so far I'm enjoying my time with it. Also, to everybody just filing in, hey, it's great to see you all here, and we'd love to have more people here. So, guys, share this show out. Let everybody know that we are live now talking about Plague's Tale, CMA, and a few other things. And hey, smash that like button if you haven't already, and sub to the channel, because we would love to have you stick around. But yeah, with that being said, we will move on to other news, and it's a bit of a spicy one. In a bold move, Microsoft has responded to the UK's Competition and Markets Authority, the CMA for short. And in the 33-page response, Microsoft states that PlayStation and Nintendo have been market leaders for generations, while Xbox has been third place currently in the industry. And yeah, it's very interesting. Going on to call the acquisition of Activision Blizzard King basically fair competition, all the while it seems as if the CMA is protecting Sony for some odd reason. Just very interesting stuff here. Now, General MLD, my very inquisitive friend, what do you think about of Microsoft's response to the CMA? Because to me, it seems like they're ready to fight tooth and nail for this deal.
Oh yeah, this is definitely this is so spicy because people read the CMA's Phase 1 decision, and everyone's all of a sudden the knee-jerk reaction, doom and gloom, this deal's gonna fail. And then this drops. And I've never been worried because, I mean, I'm not 100% sure it's going to go through this thing. But I do know that Microsoft has literally the best lawyers money can buy. And this 33-page document is, it's a testament to that. Now, I'm only going to go through like certain bullet points, but overall, it's pretty scathing. It pokes holes in every argument the CMA does. And if this goes into like a proper Phase 2 where where they have to argue about it point by point in person, the CMA is going to be very hard pressed to hold on to their arguments. Now, because ultimately Xbox, they're not the market leader. They're trying to catch up, level the playing field. It's not like they're the market leader trying to hold on to their lead. They're the underdog. Well, again, Xbox is the underdog, not Microsoft, but I like to view Xbox as like the what is it? The underprivileged kid that just inherited his lost uncle's billions. I don't know, something like that. But yeah, let me just get into it here. So, in terms of all the pages there's no evidence to suggest that they plan to take Call of Duty away. They offered a contract that had a certain year expiry date, but I take that they can easily argue that as, well, we don't want to just give it away, make Call of Duty multiplied in perpetuity. Let's wait X amount of years, see where the IP is at that time, and renegotiate the contract, based on that, which I think is a pretty reasonable thing to do. And also, Call of Duty, it should not be compared to other FPS games in that it's competing with, like Apex or whatever. But Xbox argues that it actually competes with other big titles in the industry at the same time, regardless of genre, like Fortnite, FIFA, Minecraft, Rocket League, GTA Online. The stats show that Call of Duty players also play these games. So it really isn't the end-all, be-all IP that will make or break a console brand. Now, they also said they actually made a bold claim here. They said to scrutinize Sony's numbers that they gave to the CMA. they suggested that maybe they fudged some numbers about Call of Duty revenues, and they could potentially be falsified. So I think that's definitely something that they should do. If they're just taking Sony's evidence at face value, they should. If they're gonna, let me just say this: if they're gonna scrutinize Xbox's claims, they should also scrutinize Sony's claims at the same time, which is fair to say. And even though they're not going to do it, because they say they're not, if Sony lost all Call of Duty users, which again, they claim it's going to stay multiplat, PlayStation will still have more monthly active users than Xbox. Basically, PlayStation, they're the market leader. They will be just fine no matter what Xbox does. And ultimately, that's good. That competition will not be hindered in there. And the CMA, they do a lot of speculation on the future of Xbox, should the deal go through, the implications of gaming subscription models. But Xbox argues that PlayStation, they don't speculate on how PlayStation would adapt. Like, they're the market leader. They got the brand name. They got the first party. They got their third party deals. They failed to speculate how PlayStation will adapt to the market and attempt to remain relevant. So it's clearly not a two-way street. They're clearly, because they also accuse the CMA of a deliberate Sony bias. They actually point out that Sony was mentioned 57 times in their Phase 1 report and only mentioned the word consumers 10 times. That right there is a big little something to consider here. That they're taking maybe Sony's concerns at face value and not really forming their own objective opinions. And then you have the cases of the history. History is directly in Xbox's favor. Minecraft. They bought Mojang how many years ago? Still on PlayStation. Fallout 76, Elder Scrolls Online, Wasteland 3, Psychonauts 2, Skyrim, which just re-released last year, also on PlayStation. They do not pull existing games from PlayStation. This is a fact that they simply have overlooked. And I think what a particularly scathing argument in Xbox's favor is that Xbox believes in crossplay. Call of Duty has crossplay enabled. So taking it away from PlayStation literally makes no sense. You're just pissing off the PlayStation user base. And it's going to hurt the IP in general and ultimately Xbox revenue. Remember, PlayStation is the one that fought tooth and nail against crossplay. They charged developers to implement crossplay. Xbox was always very progressive in this regard. So, given that, it is in their best interest to keep Call of Duty multi-platform and keep crossplay intact. So, and in the end, like, I'm almost done here because there's a lot to go through here, but Xbox, they're a minor player in console, even if this thing goes through. They're a minor player in PC because you got Steam. They're a minor player in mobile because you got Apple and Android app stores. And cloud market is so small. The market cap for that is so small. It is still literally anybody's game. Remember, PlayStation Now came out years before Game Pass, and that started out as a cloud service. Again, it depends on how hard a company is willing to try to make it in that little market and help it grow. So these anti-acquisition arguments, they are rooted in emotion, speculation, and fear. And I think Xbox, their legal team, these guys are S tier, and I think they're going to have a solid case for this acquisition to go through. And also, on the side note, I recommend everybody who's an Xbox fan here, send an email to the CMA. They offered the choice for fans, the general public, to voice their concerns. I recommend writing an email to them. It's a quick Google search away. Try to remain objective, not emotional. Stick to the facts. Xbox, they're just trying to level the playing field, make it a more even, competitive environment for everybody. And ultimately, PlayStation, they'll be just fine. Like, I'm an Xbox fan. Everyone knows that. But even I know PlayStation will be just fine. They will endure. So, yeah, this is going to get spicy as the months go on, but I think Xbox is pretty good.
Damn, you really did your homework there, MLD.
Oh yes, I'm invested in this.
Well,
I want Game Pass to get as good as possible because someone who said it here, Centurion said, like, I'm a Game Pass guy through and through. I play so many games that I discover that I would not have played otherwise. There are so many Activision Blizzard games I really want to play once they hit Game Pass. as opposed to just buying them all individually and spending hundreds of dollars. This way I can just play them all like on the service. Boom, like 100 saved, easy. I think every Xbox Game Pass user should want to get the most out of their service, and that's a completely normal thing to want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, totally. And you're right. There's a lot to like dive into, like really deep with this 33-page response from Microsoft, but they make a lot of valid points, and you brought them up very well. Curious what other panel members think. Eric Shockley, buddy, I'll hit you up. I don't know if you had a chance to like go through some of, I guess you would call it Microsoft's rebuttal to the CMA. I guess there's a lot of wording you could use here, but I don't know. What do you think about Xbox kind of tackling this, fighting back to the CMA?
Yeah, I mean, they made good points. It's kind of what they've been kind of saying or pointing out like early on when they've had some other reviews. Basically like look at Sony's position. Look how they've dominated over the past 20 coming up or close to nearly 30 years here. And just look at the last generation. Like they absolutely had a stranglehold over the gaming market, because for the most part, for at least the first half of it, you didn't have the Switch involved, so it literally was like obliterating the Wii U, obliterating the Xbox. 2-1, it got to like 3-1 at one point. So I mean, when you look at that in comparison, like even if some of these games don't all stay on there, the likelihood that they'll completely surpass Sony in market share, and not only that, like have such a have like the reverse opposite that Sony had on Xbox last gen, is probably highly unlikely. Sony's dominated for so long. Plus, like in Japan, Xbox is doing way better than it did last gen, but it's still, when you look at those numbers, it's a drop in a bucket in comparison to like the Switch or even PlayStation. And even in like Europe, even though Xbox has been close in the earlier in the year, more probably due to chip shortages and stock. Like you're looking at those numbers now, and Sony's beating them worldwide when you look at those like weekly numbers, and a lot of it is because they're getting easily outsold in Europe. So I mean, Sony has such a long history like in Europe, and just like people weren't playing anything else other than like PlayStation. Like in the late 90s, there was like, sure, Sega was doing decent, but like with their going from Genesis, that was big over there in Europe, but then still the Sega Saturn overall didn't do well much places other than Japan. So Sony themselves, like no one was buying N64s. I mean, I felt when I had an N64 that like it was doing very well against as a kid against the PlayStation, just because every kid I knew had an N64. Not every kid I knew had a PlayStation, and it was like that's the one you would want to play with your friends because it had all those cool party games. But when you look at it, go back and look at PlayStation, they had a complete stranglehold for 2 generations in a row, just with PS1, PS2. So that allowed them, since Sony, Sega and Nintendo literally just gave them almost the entire market with no competition, because one went with cartridges, so basically no third parties could make games for you, and then the other one just they went the smart route. Sega went the smart route, the disc, but they made their console, it was too similar, and it was too expensive, and it was harder to develop for. Like if Sony wasn't there, Sega would be probably a dominant force, because they would have destroyed the N64 with the Sega Saturn, because all those Final Fantasy VII, Metal Gear Solid, all those big huge titles that made PlayStation what it was would have just gone to the Saturn, because they couldn't have been made for the N64. But that's the thing. Both of those two juggernauts completely just imploded and just literally gave Sony the easiest entry to just dominate, with barely any, they didn't really have to do anything. It was a complete layup. It's like, here, it's right there. Just take it from us. And then they took it and then they dominated the hell out of them for those first two generations. And then even with PS3, when they took a step back and somewhat, the Blu-ray ended up, being a big boom towards the end of the second half. And then they did just fine. Technically, they outpaced the 360 pretty much their entire lifespan. From outside of that first year, which was pretty parallel to the 360. If you count that after, they outpaced them. It was just they were a year behind. So you always looked at the 360 number as being bigger until the very end. So I mean, it's just hard to say. It's just hard to me to see like the CMA saying like, "Hey, this is going to be so detrimental to Sony." I'm like, how? Look how dominant they are. It just doesn't make any sense. Like, it's kind of ridiculous. I mean, you just look at where such a name brand, what PlayStation is. Like, Xbox changes its name to Xbox One, and people don't even know what the hell that is, or 360. And then now and then people were saying, like they say, get confused with their names, Series X, Series S. I mean, PlayStation has such a streamlined name brand where people know that name, even better. PlayStation and Nintendo just go hand in hand, way more and ubiquitous across all worldwide regions, whereas Xbox is still trying to hit that global threshold. Especially like I mentioned before, like in Japan and other markets that they're not in comparison. So it's just hard to say like they're going to be so hurt and their industry is going to just like cripple now. No, that's just laughable. It might be more competitive. And like General MLD said, like they have a reason to keep those games on there, to keep Activision's titles as big as they currently are now. I think the thing about that wording of like, hey, we're going to give you the, that we're not going to guarantee you stuff past, 2027 is because you need to have some leverage sometimes. Like I think we've mentioned before in past podcasts that like, hey, if they want to do some, I don't know, something that you're not, liking, you don't want to just in perpetuity, like, hey, here's a contract in perpetuity, you're going to have Call of Duty no matter what. No, you want to have some leverage. So if like something goes down and Sony decides whatever deal they had with Bungie that, hey, they're going to make Destiny whatever those titles are now exclusive, then Microsoft can be like, okay, cool, well then we can kind of do the same thing. If they try to pull some of that stuff, or just in general, there might be some semantics in those contracts that Microsoft might want to negotiate. There's just certain things in a contract where, okay, maybe I want to negotiate this part of it, just like you see in sports where you have people restructure a contract. Like, you don't want to just like, hey, in perpetuity, no matter what happens, because we don't know where the gaming industry is going to be in a decade, 2 decades, like how different it will be, and maybe they need to change up that contract or adjust it somehow. So there's no reason for any company to give a indefinite contract. Like, that doesn't make any sense.
Mm-hmm. No, well said there, Eric. You hit on a couple of really interesting points that I'll be honest, I wasn't thinking about. But yeah, no, that's no, you're right. Definitely interesting train of thought there, pal. Crusader, I know you're chomping on the bit to get in, but first I want to get Centurion in
I
on
was going to tell you to do Centurion first, because mine is tangential to this conversation. MLD started what I'm going to say, and I'm going to finish it.
All right, sounds good. Sounds good. Because I know everybody here has a lot to pick at with, what's going on here with the CMA. Yep. But Centurion, you're up next. What are your thoughts on this whole CMA? Obviously, Microsoft is not backing down here and seem to be putting up a fight with their response. What's your thoughts on their 33-page letter and more?
Well, before I make my comment, I want everybody to know I want this deal to go through. I am an Xbox supporter. But that being said, I have also been the person since the day that this announcement came out that oh my God, the coming of the Messiah, Xbox is getting Activision. We have won. I told everybody to go sit down and reserve themselves.
Yeah.
And that got me a lot of boos. And because everybody thought this deal was going to be signed, sealed, and delivered.
Oh,
Bullshit.
I thought they were saying boo earns. I'm sorry.
No.
I said,
And I'm not trying to say that in a mean way. I'm just trying to say I knew what was happening. Now, I thought we'd see more of it with the FTC and FTC Chairman Khan and how she has taken the stance on wanting to be more proactive on controlling tech companies. I have noticed now that the FTC has taken a step back because apparently the CMA has gone very power thirsty. They have taken pride in the fact that they are the biggest assholes in government in regulations around the world. And a lot of regulators around the world basically sit back and let the CMA make these decisions for them because at this point they know that the CMA are some of the most scrutinous people in regulating buyouts like this. I've even come to the point where I said it the other day that the CMA, in my opinion, are nothing but a bunch of snobbish dictators that think they know what's best for everybody else. And the reason why I say dictators is because, yes, I will agree with General MLD. Microsoft has some damn good lawyers. But like everybody, I got bad news. You cannot sue the CMA like you can the FTC. You could come at them with the best lawyers in the world. And the CMA is protected by the United Kingdom by a group known as CAT. I think it stands for like Consumer Advisory Tribunal. The word tribunal is not very used very heavily in a lot of law stuff, especially here in the United States, but the tribunal protects the CMA. If you can't get through CAT, the CMA will never see a single thing from you on a legal judiciary stance. You won't even get through the front gates. Basically, CAT will tell you to just take your ball, go home. And and what will happen is CAT basically judges if the CMA acts logically. They're not allowed. Basically, if the CMA does anything very illogical or crazy, that's when CAT will come in and tell the CMA, hey, you need to reevaluate this, you need to reevaluate that. But not at any time will CAT come in and be like, all right, CMA, you're removed from the equation. No. They will just basically pass the deal back to the CMA and say what they need to reevaluate. But no matter what, the CMA is always going to have the final say. And now we always see these conversations that go around like, well, Xbox, what if the CMA blocks it and other countries approve it? Well, regretfully, everybody, excuse the 4-letter word, but if the CMA can fuck this whole deal up, they have the power to. And one of the things that we all need to be aware of is, I don't know this for a fact, but when you make a declaration that you're going to buy a company out, there's sometimes fine print in those declarations that say that you need to pass approval through the FTC, the UK, the UN or whatever it is, the EU, sorry, the EU, not the UN, the EU, the FTC, the EU, and the CMA, the big three. And sometimes those clauses will say that if any one of those groups block, the deal is quashed, done. And we don't know. We do not have that declaration. We do not know for a fact. But if that statement is in the contract saying that the CMA has to approve it and they move to block, the deal's done because it's a contract. You can't just all of a sudden be like, well, it didn't happen. Let's change our minds. The other situation is if the CMA moves to block and that wording is not in the contract, well, now the Microsoft has to deal with a problem. They're heavily ingrained in the UK and the world over there. They are not going to stop selling software, Azure, and the other services that are the backbone of Microsoft in the name of preserving Activision for video games. I'm not trying to be mean in saying that, but the only thing they could do is, at least the one argument that I have heard one person talking about, is they could take a short-term approach of where they basically do try to pull back software, and they basically almost like create a little bit of an economic situation over in the UK by wrangling back what they do over in the UK, which would cause the public to want the CMA to reevaluate their decision or change whatever laws need to be changed, so that way Microsoft could be allowed to compete in their economy. But that's definitely a very big gamble for Microsoft. And, at least the people I choose to listen to on YouTube and the articles I read, they don't really see Microsoft really wanting to blow up what has been the backbone of Microsoft for many years in the name of Activision. And the real reason why I'm concerned about this deal, and where some of the places I've listened to have gone from saying it's 70-30 to 60-40 now, 40% being blocked, 60% going through. There's still a good chance it's going to go through. But the real concern, especially when I am sitting down right now listening to Richard Hogue over on Hogue Law on YouTube, he did a over 7-hour live podcast. I'm 3 hours deep on this, and he is going through every line of the CMA's complaint. And the big concerning fact is the CMA, and I put a tweet out about this. A lot of people didn't react to it because maybe they didn't understand. The CMA, for some reason, is acting like they're conducting themselves with a crystal ball and that they are from the future, and they know what Microsoft is going to do, even though Microsoft has not done it yet. And a lot of the complaints that the CMA has done, they've mentioned Sony a lot. They barely talk about the consumer. The other problem is they love using terms like hypothetical, assuming, and the big one is dynamic market. The concept of a dynamic market is emerging markets like cloud. We have no idea where those industries are going, who's going to appear in those industries, who's going to succeed in those industries. So it's a guessing game. The FTC out here in the United States likes to base things on a static market, or basically what is going on in 2022, not what could be in 2032. They're judging themselves based on 2022 and what's actively going on in the world economy. And that's where the FTC has been relatively silent, because they're wanting to gauge it on what's happening today. But for some reason, the CMA seems very wrapped up in wanting to talk about the hypothetical and the what ifs and the potential that this could cause problems in the future. And it's like they're trying to stop Microsoft from making moves that Microsoft either may not ever make or hasn't made. It's very interesting. I do not agree with what the CMA is doing. But regretfully, this is the road that the CMA is choosing to go down. They're wanting to look far into the future and for some reason act like they're trying to protect consumers in the name of Sony. I don't know why they're doing this. It's very interesting. It's been a very fun spectator sport watching this whole thing take place, which goes back to when I originally got booed back in January because I told everybody to be reserved, and I was not going to go running down the yellow brick road screaming the Wicked Witch is dead, because I knew that there was going to be some government regulators that were going to screw this up.
Yeah, I mean, it's okay to be excited. Obviously, I think everybody here was just still taking it in. I mean, heck, now I'm still wow, they made that move. But I knew realistically, once you settle down from the news, come back down to earth, Yeah, I mean, there was going to be a lot of scrutiny involved, so.
Yeah, and that's where I'm not trying. I mean, it's something to be excited about. But let's look at the big elephant in the room and the big problem. Not to ramble on, but regretfully, it's like having a criminal record. That shit follows you around whether you like it or not. And Microsoft back in the early 2000s was supposed to be dismantled because of the crap they pulled with Microsoft Internet Explorer. And one of the complaints that the CMA pointed out was by having such a strong foothold in cloud gaming with the Activision buyout. This means that more developers and other people that want to get into the gaming industry are going to have to lean on Microsoft software to develop their games to get them on this cloud network, which feels more like that early 2000s Microsoft that literally got them sued and they were told to dismantle the company, but somehow Microsoft was able to negotiate and go through a lot of litigation to avoid that dismantling of Microsoft. But this is where the CMA, I guess, is a very unforgiving organization, and they are scrutinizing Microsoft because they are Microsoft.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, and that's a fair comment. And I remember your warnings from back in the day. You're right. And that was a very level-headed approach, honestly, because there was no way this deal was going to go forward without a lot of scrutiny. A lot of scrutiny.
Oh, for real. A lot of, dude, this is $70 billion. But that being said, to close at least my statement out, if by some chance the CMA moves to block this with Sony's name all over this, they are effed. Like Sony, I hope you're listening. I hope you Sony fans out there are listening. Sony is a multi-billion-dollar company, and they are poking a stick at a multi-trillion-dollar company. Satya Nadella is backing Phil Spencer. Where's Jim Ryan's boss? Oh, he's being stoically silent. The only one that's out there bitching and whining is Jim Ryan. I don't think he has the full support of Sony like Phil Spencer has with Satya Nadella.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about that right now. There's $70 billion sitting in a bank account right now waiting to buy Activision, and all of a sudden this deal gets quashed. You think they're going to take that $70 billion in the back and burn it with the Joker? No. They're going to take that $70 billion and they're going to money hat every freaking exclusive, every freaking piece of DLC. And they're going to make every back end freaking deal they can, and they are going to literally choke freaking Sony. On top of that, do you really think Activision is going to be buddy-buddy with frickin' Sony for blowing a deal? The entire board of Activision is counting on that money that they're going to get from Microsoft. And here comes Sony, somebody that literally is doing business with them right now. Do you really think that by some chance they're going to walk away with the frickin' marketing for Call of Duty after this? It's going to be like this. Oh, Sony, you only gave us $500 million to have marketing for Call of Duty. Well, Microsoft gave us 550. Go fuck yourself. It's going to be like that. Like literally, like Sony is playing with fire right now because the only thing government regulators can do is regulate buyouts and mergers. They cannot regulate contracted negotiated deals, back-end deals, exclusivity. Like what happens if Microsoft decides to play the same game Sony does every single year, but does it better and has a bigger checkbook that starts with a bank account with $70 billion at Phil Spencer's disposal? Good luck, Sony.
Frankly, I'd feel like it's what would happen, right? It's what will happen. Frankly, I'd feel it's a regression in the industry. But I'm the person here who would prefer literally everything to be on sub-services, and I don't give a shit about exclusivity. Make your sub-services better because I legitimately just benefit more, right? Like, I don't care. I'd rather them spend no money on exclusive rights and spend everything on getting all my games and Game Pass, right? But that's me. And so, like, I would be like, they would cause a massive regression for me as a consumer in the industry. Like, and it wouldn't be Microsoft's fault. Microsoft would be playing the game that they're out to play. They're playing the market the way that they are now forced into the corner of doing, which is fine. You know, it's acceptable for them to do it. But like for me, it's just like, you know, I love that instead of Plague Tale Requiem being an exclusive to Microsoft, they just kind of gave it to me. Does that make sense? I love that. Love it. Couldn't be happier. Because I don't care if a PlayStation user can play the game or not, because I'm playing the game at no additional cost to my subscription. A subscription which I mostly fund through Microsoft Rewards and don't pay that much, you know what I mean? Most of my Microsoft Rewards come from me using Bing of all unforsaken things. And you know, using like the cash back I get from purchases and stuff like that, right? And so like I benefit and everyone else gets to still play, and like it's literally a better situation than back in the 360 when it was just like, you know, everything was exclusive to one system or another. I don't care if other people can play it or not. I care more that like they've created a system that feels better to me as a consumer than the exclusive system, but that is what we would be forced back into if they killed it. You know what I mean? That is what we'd be forced back into, and it would suck. Now, we'd probably still get everything on Game Pass, so, like, it's still better, you know, because they're not going to sign a lot of those deals without Game Pass, baby, but they'll pay more money for them.
Now, Crusader, is this a part of your soapbox, or are you leading into
not. This was just something Centurion brought up, and I thought it was excellent.
All right, because now I want to hear your thoughts on this, honestly, because, again, everybody here has had some really awesome points, and I want to end off with you.
I'm legitimately frustrated and tired of talking about the regulators every time Activision Blizzard comes up.
Right.
And so I wasn't even going to talk during this segment. I was going to tell you this evening. I didn't really want to chime in during the segment. I don't want to talk about it anymore. But on the Twitterverse, right? Some people are out there complaining that people are doing what the CMA asked, sending their opinions, and that we're defending a $1 trillion company for free. Motherfuckers, I'm not, you know, and I'm going to curse through this. I'm not apologizing. Motherfuckers, I'm not doing it for free. If this goes through, I get games on Game Pass. I get more games on Game Pass. I directly benefit if this goes through. So yeah, I'm gonna write this. I originally I had said I was considering writing. I was considering that. I'm gonna write the CMA. You know, I'm gonna be respectful. I encourage everyone who has an opinion on the subject to be respectful and write. Don't be like Xbox better, Lomao. It's dumb as shit. Write what you think. Your genuine opinion, right? But it went further than that. You know, they're complaining that like we're writing them for free, right? They're out here saying that like instead of writing a letter to them, you should go and get a associate's degree or a bachelor's degree. Motherfuckers, I have 2 bachelor's degrees. I have one in mathematics and one in computer science, right? I was summa cum laude. I graduated with a GPA of 3.97. I had the highest award that my department could give me when I graduated, right? When I walk into a room, generally, I'm the smartest person in the room, but that doesn't make me above everyone else, right? I'm not going to belittle someone for doing what an organization said and come out and be like, go better yourself. No, because genuinely, every time that I enter a room with people, I learn something. I learn something from every member of this podcast every time I'm on it, right? I'm not better than anyone. The only time that I ever feel, and it's not even feel, I know that I'm better than someone, is when someone is specifically talking down on people, right? I know I'm better than the person who's talking down on people, because talking down on people is the lowest form of anything that anyone can do, right? If you have an opinion, and I don't care if you have an Xbox opinion or a PlayStation opinion on this matter, if you're going to say that you don't want the deal to go through and that's what you want to write the CMA, go and do it. That's your opinion. That's what the CMA is asking of consumers, right? I want the deal to go through. I think it'll be better for at least consumers who are like me, right? It might not be better. It's definitely not going to be better for all consumers because at least some Activision Blizzard games are no longer going to be released on all systems. Some of them, right? Now, not Call of Duty. Call of Duty is still going to be released everywhere. But So I understand that some people might be against this and they want to write that they're against it. Good, you should. Everyone should, right? If they feel strongly enough about it. I'm not going to tell you you have to go out and do it, but you should, right? And it irritates me to no end that we have these disrespectful people that exist and want to belittle people. You'll never see me purposely belittling someone unless I see them belittling someone else. Then I'll come in and flex all over them and tell them they're shit, right? But I'm not above anyone on this panel. I love everyone on this panel. I respect everyone on this panel. They're all my equals. And it's just so frustrating to see how people act and treat each other. This is not how people should be acting and treating each other over something as trivial as entertainment companies buying each other. It's dumb as shit. Be better.
No. This is serious business. We're all invested in this.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm just
Right?
kidding, but
Yeah, no, I know you are. And it's frustrating. So everyone see Dots in chat. Dots has been my best friend for well, I should say one of my best friends. I don't want to hurt any other best friends' feelings, but he has been one of my best friends for 10 years of my life, right? So he gets to say these things in chat because he knows that it'll frustrate me. But it's just so frustrating to hear people say that you shouldn't go do something that an organization actually asked you to do. Now, if I see you guys emailing and trolling the CMA, I'm gonna be under your bed. Because that's the opposite of what you should be doing. You're not helping. You're not helping anyone. Go and write a well thought out opinion and send it if you feel so inclined. I do feel so inclined, and I'll write it, and I'll probably publish it online when I write. But it is so otherworldly frustrating to see people just being so bitter online. Don't be bitter online. Be better. Have fun. This is gaming, right? If you're not having fun, then you need to like look into your life and think about why you're not having fun. Go have fun. There's thousands of video games to play, you know? And I'm not like, this is not a message to anyone on this panel. I don't want anyone to think this is, and I am not going to name names as to who I'm talking about. I don't want to. I don't think I need to. I don't think I have to. I'm not a confrontational person, and that's why I haven't said any names. I don't want the confrontation. I don't care for it. I'm just telling people to be better, right? And yeah, don't be better, be better, right? That you can quote me on that. It's just it's so frustrating that this shit brings out the worst in people. Don't let it bring out the worst in you. Have fun in gaming. That's my TED talk for tonight.
Yeah, that's fanboy culture in a nutshell for you. If I had to sum it up, I mean, I know I understand it. I know fanboy culture is not rational at all. It's all very emotionally driven, but at least I understand it enough. I think it's all about the status quo. PS4 dominated last generation. The fanboys, they ran amok. They ran online like they were kings of the castle. They ran the joint. And now I think the status quo might just actually be upsetted. And when you have someone cornered, and they know that the status quo will be shaken up, it will get worse before it gets better. I think that's what it all comes down to. Xbox fans are tired of being picked on. They're standing up for themselves. And PlayStation fans, they don't want to have their power, their online clout power taken away from them. And that's why you're seeing all this toxicity. That's just what happens when there's a shakeup in the industry. Some people want change, and some people don't like the change. Is what it is.
It's just
I know.
It's tiring.
I know.
And it's not. I'm not even. I see it everywhere, right? I see it in our own community with things. Not in particular the ABK acquisition, of course, but I see it in our own community with things. I see it in PlayStation community. I see it in the general community. I saw people gave honest opinions about how they were feeling about various games, right? From everything from Gotham Knights to Plague Tale to the God of War previews, right? And people are going and harassing reviewers over what they're saying that they're clout chasers and they're owned by corporations, and it's what's wrong with you? Stop, people.
I know. Everyone's on edge. You know.
Like, I can't take it. Like, it's so frustrating. I see people going like, it's the death of gaming, and I'm like, what the fuck do you mean? Games have legitimately never been better on all platforms. Like, the bar keeps getting raised by everyone, and I don't get I don't get where these people come from, right? This is the first time in a long time I felt a strong desire to literally own everything and play on everything, right? I'm so happy playing everything, and I feel like there are just so many people who are just sad and angry, and it's time to stop, right? Like Filthy Frank with the clock. It's time to stop.
No, well said there,
No.
Crusader. Go ahead, Centurion.
I just wanted to like, Centurion. A Crusader's right. You see, here's something that's like why, for starters, the Xbox fan base needs to calm down. Xbox's end goal is not to destroy PlayStation. They want to compete with PlayStation, and with competition, you get good things. This goes out to the PlayStation fan base. Why are you cheering for Sony to continue spending millions and millions and millions of dollars on Call of Duty? We all hear the trash talk every single year. And we also, what does Sony do for gaming? They create third-person, over-the-shoulder experience, cinematic experiences. That's the only thing that they're known for. God of War Ragnarok comes out in November. What do you got after that? What? Think about it. It's once God of War, excuse the pun, shoots its load on the fucking industry, it's done. What do you got? There's not another God of War game out there. We already know that what other big name games is Sony working on that are factual. I don't care about the hypothetical or the leaker over here said this or the industry insider over there said that it could possibly be that. We all know that once God of War Ragnarok occurs, that's the game that everybody's looking forward to. What has Sony got? They've got, it seems that Sony is more concerned with the fate of Call of Duty. Why? What can we please get Sony to actually do what they did back in the day? And that's create a brand that had games like, regretfully, like Activision put a lot of these games multi-plat, but I remember some of these games that were very fun and at least innovative when it came to competition in the market. We had Crash Bandicoot, we had Tony Hawk, we had Spyro the Dragon. There is a lot of potential for Sony to use with Resistance, The Fall of Man, and other titles that they are just letting go dormant. And they are spending millions and millions of dollars on a marketing campaign for a game that almost everybody talks crap about every single year. Like, it seems like the only innovative thing that Sony puts a lot of money into is VR. Something that captures like maybe 5 or 6% of the fan base's attention. Why doesn't Sony go out and try to create another blockbuster game like God of War, something that really gets the fans to be like, yes, that's why I freaking own a PlayStation? But no, Jim Ryan is spending a lot of time and effort into protecting Call of Duty.
Well said.
Well, no, very well said. Actually, very well said from across the panel. Damn, guys, you were on fire. Honestly, I know that we can go on and on and on about this, and personally, I'm probably in the same camp as Crusader about. In a lot of ways, I'm just tired of talking about it, but things keep popping up and certain discussions keep popping up, and in some ways we gotta talk about it. We got to.
Like, I thought Bethesda was bad, right? this is magnitudes worse,
Mm-hmm.
right? The Bethesda conversations didn't stop, but this is next level.
Because it's
At least it can't
compounding.
get worse. It can't get worse. There is no one bigger, right? It can't get worse than this.
Oh, it'll get worse. Believe me, it'll get worse before it gets better.
It
this
can't.
is not the lowest point. I got a hunch, but something tells me in the new year it'll get lower.
Just wait until something like Sega gets announced. But
Monopoly.
oh yeah, right. But again, we can go on and on and on about that, and I know a lot of guys here are have been going back and forth in the chat about this. And guys, it's great to have you here, of course. And if you haven't done so already, smash the like button and share this out. Not to keep repeating myself, but hey, I love to have people here joining the conversation. Any other thoughts, guys, or can we move on? Yes, no. Okay. All right, I'll move on to our final topic of the night. And Konami has finally lifted the lid off of their new Silent Hill projects, ones that they've been teasing for a while. In a recent showcase, they unveiled multiple games currently being developed for the series, including a remake of Silent Hill 2 done by no other than Bloober Team. The ones who did The Medium. I thought it was a pretty cool game. But anyways, Eric Budd, I'll be going to you on this. I'm curious what you think of this. We've known for a while Konami was bringing back Silent Hill and a few other titles, but we didn't know how big that they were going to go. What are your thoughts on the game reveals for the remake and the other ones?
Yeah, it's cool to see that they're actually starting to tapping in their IP, other than just like releasing, Castlevania GBA collections, because they've been pretty much like dormant since like Metal Gear Solid 5. So that's definitely nice to see. I didn't really see much on the other titles other than the remake, because that seemed to be the popular one getting shared around on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm definitely interested in playing that. I know I've started Silent Hill 2, like I think on the 360 like HD collection. It is weird what they kind of decide to go with his face, at least from that first glimpse. Kind of looks like Joe Biden to me. Now I can't get it out of my head. Or like a Jeff Dunham grandpa puppet.
I see
I'm
what.
just like, why is he making that smug face?
I see it. Yeah.
But yeah, that's cool that they're remaking. Hopefully they'll do some of the other ones. Maybe like I think The Room could be a cool one. I know that was always an interesting one that I played halfway through. But yeah, it'd be cool. It's weird that they started with 2 and not just 1.
Yeah, they don't
at least
have. They don't
think
have a
one's
remake
good.
of 1, do they?
Silent Hill fans, but I don't know if people have on the panel played Silent Hill, the first one. But I think that one's supposed to be good as well. I know it's super dated, but maybe they'll do some other titles that'd be cool. I think some of was it Parasite Eve? Was that Konami as well? Or was that just
I'll be honest,
jumping on the bandwagon?
I don't know off the
They all
top of
had
my
that
head.
similar type of feel, like those survival horror games. So I can't remember if Konami had those as well. But that'd be cool if they do more of the Silent Hill franchise or do something with it. Either do an actual new one that we haven't had for, I don't know, a decade or so.
Mm-hmm. Well,
But yeah, we'll see.
Oh no, they announced a lot of stuff besides the remake, Silent Hill Downfall, which is a spin-off.
Most of those seem to be like either AA or smaller titles, it seemed, or if I didn't read it correctly, but
to be honest, I'm not
I think
100%
one of them said
sure.
AA, but yeah, I'm not sure about the other. So I think one was supposed to be like more AA, but yeah, we'll see how those turn out.
Yeah, they also announced a movie
I'm
too.
glad that they're actually using them now. So
yeah, they announced a movie as well, Return to Silent Hill. Which, hey, if anybody's excited for that, let me know. I don't know what you guys thought about the older Silent Hill movies, but I don't know. I thought that this is interesting because there was always a rumor going around about Konami uh, getting reinvested in a lot of their more popular IP. Silent Hill always came up. There's been rumors about it for years now. Castlevania has also come up, so I wouldn't be surprised if we heard something about that in the near future. But one thing that got me, Eric, was with the Silent Hill remake is that it's a PlayStation exclusive for a year. What do you think about that?
Oh yeah, that's I mean, that's just par for the course at this time. Like that's what they're doing with everything, and I would have assumed if this ever did, them start making Silent Hill games that they're gonna be a timed exclusive if they ever, could have actually started releasing Silent Hill IP again. So, but yeah, it is funny with everything that's going on. That's just another part of the whole CMA thing. That's them saying, "Hey, look what they're doing over here with making these exclusive." And I get it'd be timed exclusive, but sometimes they make some of these deals 1 or sometimes even 2 years where it's like so far in advance that by the time that thing actually comes to that platform, it's old news. Like it's like when Tomb Raider a year later comes to PlayStation, no one was talking about it. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting the reaction going on too, because remember, when you get 1 year exclusives to these franchises, like you said, there's supposed to be an uproar, like with what was it, Rise of the Tomb Raider? Oh man, so what is Konami apologizing for it now? Yes, no on social media? No, I don't think so. So it's funny how that
Crystal
goes.
Dynamics is still the only developer to ever apologize for 1 year exclusivity, even though Xbox flipped the bill for Rise of the Tomb Raider.
Yeah, no, going over to you, Centurion. I mean, I don't know if you've ever been invested in the Silent Hill games. I mean, but I would still love to know your reaction to this Silent Hill kind of live stream, event, showcase, whatever you want to call it. I don't know. What do you think of the announcements?
I read the articles. I will be truthful. I work so much, I don't even really get to tune into as many events as I want to. I always catch them on the replay. This one, I sat at work and read the articles that would pop up. It's good to see that obviously, like, this brand is finally getting out of the litigation hell that it's been stuck in. It's going to start being given another chance in the game industry. I remember when Silent Hill was a very big popular game on PlayStation, of all places. And everybody was talking about Silent Hill. And then the movies came out, and oh my god, like it's kind of like what happened to Resident Evil. The freaking, you want to tear a franchise down, the kiss of death is make a couple movies out of that franchise, and don't worry, you will lose a lot of mind share for that franchise real quick. Same with the Silent Hill movies and what it did to the Silent Hill franchise. And what really kind of hammered it home on Silent Hill's issues was the problems with Hideo Kojima, Konami, and other people involved with its development, and it was just basically stuck in this purgatory where nobody could really do much with it. It's good to see that it's once again, having the dust blown off of it. But it is very interesting to see that yet again, a developer wants to go multi-plat with a game, and here comes Sony with a bag of money, and they're getting this exclusive, timed release, which isn't a big deal. But it's my main sticking point that I have been saying this entire time, that if it's bad for Microsoft to do, it should be bad for Sony to do. There should not be a clear double standard in the industry where Microsoft bad, Sony good. Whatever Sony does, it's great, best thing since sliced bread. But Microsoft, they're out to take over the industry and just do bad things. Like, that's my only argument, is that I just think it's very interesting that Sony is once again doing exclusive access to a game timed. There's even rumors that PlayStation like squashed having any kind of a PlayStation event for the rest of the year because they don't want to give any more fuel to Microsoft's argument to the CMA, because for some reason Sony wants to make it look like, oh, we can't compete without Call of Duty, we can't compete. Please don't mind the man behind the curtain. Don't worry about the exclusive games over here. We can't compete. When we all, like, literally even Sony knows it's BS. The fact that this game is going to be at least exclusive 1 year, maybe 2 years, even Sony knows their argument of not being able to compete is BS. And the situation with Silent Hill proves that.
Well said. Oh man, you brought up those Resident Evil movies. Oh man. Oh, something I want to get out of my head. Some of them were filmed near me too.
You know what? I own every single one of them physically.
Oh, nice.
So I add them to my collection. I mean, it is what it is, man. Like, if you want me to be crazy, the first Resident Evil movie was pretty badass. And what really hammered that game home was a lot of people don't know that the soundtrack was done by Marilyn Manson, and Marilyn Manson is one of those artists that know that you can affect a human emotion with sounds and music. And when he scored when he scored Resident Evil with the soundtrack that it had, I feel like that's what really helped push that game over. I mean, that movie really out into mainstream, showing like, hey, this just might work. But then the second movie came around, and all of a sudden it's like we've shoehorned characters in, and we've got Mike Epps going around saying, Mike Epps making PlayStation jokes of all thing in the second movie. So like, that's when it's like, oh boy, yep, they're going down this road. So yep, the first one was a very short-lived success.
Right. Curious some other thoughts on the panel. Crusader, I'll hit you up, but I don't know if you have any interest in Konami or any of the Silent Hill titles, but again, like, it's been a while since we've seen anything Silent Hill related, and it's good to see a whole bunch of games pop up. Got any thoughts on it?
All right, so one thing I've learned in my now many moons of podcasting, right, is that I'm the youngest one generally on every podcast. I'm only like 26 years, right? I have not played a Silent Hill game. I only vaguely know about them because of the Pyramid Head. That being said, I really, really like when games become more widely available and franchises return and things like that. Because I'm not someone who craves the need for a new IP all the time. I would be happy, like, for example, BioWare just made Mass Effect and Dragon Age for the next forever, right? I don't necessarily need new IPs. I just need good games. And when I see that most of the people who I know that are Silent Hill fans, like Dreamcast guy, for example, is a big Silent Hill fan. He was freaking out over the Silent Hill news. He was so excited. And that makes me really happy as someone who, that was me when the Mass Effect Legendary Edition came out. So seeing the Silent Hill fans be very excited about, their games coming back, that's awesome to see, right? That's really awesome to see. Now, these aren't like, one's a remake, but it's not, from what I understand, it's not a 1-to-1 remake, right? Because like the old Silent Hill games were more like the old Resident Evil games, where they were kind of like the weird fixed camera kind of thing. This is an actual like the more third person over the shoulder style, like the new Resident Evil remakes. So like, it's cool to see that even though the Silent Hill 2 remake is not 1-to-1, that they are like, they're doing something new with it. That's cool to see too. I probably won't play them at all. Maybe I'll play them later when they're a little like cheaper or something like that. I'm not the biggest horror guy. If that hasn't come off, I don't know what will. But like, they look cool, and I'm definitely not going to be there day one, but maybe I'll get in on the action after the fact. But but they looked good. And I'm happy that a lot of people are excited. The one trailer, if you're trypophobic, I don't know if anyone in chat's trypophobic or if anyone on the panel is trypophobic. If you're trypophobic, the one trailer is really, really bad for trypophobia. There's holes in the person's face that like plants grow out of, and it's. I'm not trypophobic personally, but like I have a couple friends who are. I had to tell them not to watch the trailer because it would set them off right away. So that's just a warning to anyone who is trypophobic. Don't watch. I don't know which trailer it is. If you DM me because you are trypophobic, I will find out which one it was for you, so you don't have to watch it.
All right, good to know. Good to know. Yeah, no, I can't say that I am, so that's a good thing.
Did you know what trypophobia is?
It's on the. I'll be.
It's like
what's it
like
the fear of? Honestly,
honeycomb pattern style holes in things. Usually, like especially in things that aren't supposed to have that, like bone and stuff like that. It sets off people. That the pattern makes them very uneasy, and it's not uncommon for people to have. It's why a lot of horror movies and things use it because it like the honeycomb hole style patterns because it unsettles people a lot. Some people find it exceptionally repulsive and it makes them sick, like the way scorn and needles and stuff makes me sick.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why that's why they use it in that Silent Hill thing because it does make people uneasy.
I found out about this thing about what you're talking about when the iPhone came out that had 3 cameras on it because apparently people with trypophobia, it set them off. They're like, I can't even look at it, and it's like it's just 3 cameras. Are you serious?
Yep. No, I have trypophobic friends, and that wasn't enough for some of them, but like they were like, I can see where people who are trypophobic were getting set off by that. Like it's wild that you have to. That's an extreme case, but like, yeah, it sets people off, and it's definitely something that I hope that game has a disclaimer in like its store listings and stuff like that. Like the games like have the arachnophobia modes and like and stuff like that because it's a real thing. That makes people upset.
Mm-hmm. Now, let's see. To end off this conversation, General MLD, I'm not sure what your history is with the Silent Hill games, if any, but I mean, I'd love to know your opinion on like Konami's recent announcements on these games, or like Silent Hill 2 Remake being PlayStation 1-year exclusive. Please lay it on us, brother.
Oh yeah. For one, I have no experience with the IP. I grew up on Resident Evil and Dead Space. That was always my thing. But I do recognize this has a devoted fan base. Good for them. Their IP is getting some fresh content. I'm ecstatic about the Dead Space remake. So hey, I can only imagine they feel a similar way. So yeah. All that aside. Most of my commentary will be about the time exclusivity. That in itself, I don't really care because again, Silent Hill is more of an association to PlayStation anyway, not so much with Xbox. So I could care less about them getting the win on that one. If anything, it's just business, right? Like both sides have time exclusive games, so no big deal in itself. What I'm really want to talk about is people online. They say that Xbox fans compare this to the acquisition, and I think that's completely false. It's not. We're not comparing it 1-to-1. That's just silly. It's more the principle of the matter that you can't complain about Xbox locking away third-party content, and when PlayStation is all too willing to do it themselves. And this is just one example, but there's many examples out there. So it's just another. I think. If anything, it's pro acquisition because PlayStation will always have someone to give money to. They'll always find a third-party game to get a perk or time exclusivity or some kind of benefit to the PlayStation gamers. They will be just fine. There will be many other Silent Hill examples in the future where they'll jump on it, they'll give money, they'll get exclusivity, and it'll sell consoles. So that is the point of any online narrative clashes, is that, yeah, like no matter what Xbox does, these examples will always keep rearing their head. And I'm sure there are other examples too of time exclusivity that Sony is keeping close to the chest because they don't want to give Xbox any ammo. But regardless, they will clearly find ways to compete. And yeah, that said, good for the fans who are getting this. So yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Okay, fair. Very well balanced approach. Again, I'm like you, MLD. I mean, I don't really have a lot of experience with the Silent Hill games. I played a little bit of them, but you're right. They absolutely are associated with PlayStation more. There's more of a fan base there. But again, I know a lot of Xbox like horror game guys who would love to see this title come. It's just gonna be a little bit of a wait, but hey, you know what? We got a lot to look forward to. I mean, we got the Callisto Protocol coming in. What was it? December, like you said. This Dead Space remake, and a lot more. So I'm not gonna worry, but yeah, no, just to close out the Konami Silent Hill talk, I'm glad to see Konami bringing back this IP. It's been a while, and I hope to see more Castlevania in the near future, as well as some others. Again, it's good to see. It's good to see overall. But yeah, guys, I think on that front, we'll start to end things off here. Again, fun chat, great discussion across the board. We talked about the new Plague Tale game, Xbox battling with the CMA in the UK, and some talk on the new Silent Hill games getting announced. Lots of good stuff. Now, to you guys listening in, did you enjoy the chat tonight? Well, let us know. Please leave a like, sub to the channel if you haven't already, and share out this episode. Love to have more people here watching and tuning in. Also, feel free to leave a comment afterwards. Now, over to the outros. Let's see. Starting off with Centurion. Pal, hey, awesome thoughts, awesome commentary. Where can everybody follow you?
Hey, man, it was a great show tonight. Thank you, gentlemen, for some awesome conversation. Thank you to everybody out in the chat. You're awesome for tuning in tonight or catching it on the replay. Be sure to give the show a like and subscribe. Invader does work hard to help keep this place going, and we just love seeing the support for the show. For those interested in finding me, you can find me right here every Sunday night on TXR, and you can also find me every Wednesday night on Gaming Beyond the Box with Wilmy Hood. I know he's been like really busy with things going on. Obviously, he owns his own business, and that can be very demanding at times. So trying to find a good time to line up the show has been a little difficult. I know he definitely has plans to have another show. But yes, Gaming Beyond. I'm also on Gaming Beyond the Box when we do have the show. If you guys are wanting to see my content, you can also find me on YouTube. I'm also on Twitter, Xbox Live, and thanks for tuning in.
Well said. And Wilmy does a great job at hosting. He's got an awesome channel, and as well as everybody else on the panel there. Really awesome folk. Moving on down here, Eric Shockley, buddy. Hey, I thought you had a really awesome show tonight. Where can all these fine people follow you at?
Yeah, as always, you can find me at Shock Twitter, or sorry, at Shock Twitter. Jesus Christ, at Shock Nero on Twitter. Easily Shock on Xbox Live. But yeah, good show tonight. Good topics. See you later.
Short and sweet. I like that. Moving on down here, General MLD, buddy. Hey, lots of passionate talk, especially on the CMA stuff. Loved it. Where can everybody find you at?
Thank you. And little note here, Centurion. This is a very progressive panel. We appreciate your skepticism. It's what makes us all great here. So yeah. That said, everyone can find me at MLD Ghost on Twitter, gamertag Ghost MLD, and yeah, great show. Had a lot of fun, and looking forward to the next one.
Well said. Moving on down here, Crusader. Buddy, hey, love the rants, love the opinions and whatnot, and everything that you bring. A lot of people in the chat seem to agree. Where can everybody find you at?
Yeah, you gotta make sure the community knows that, like, sometimes it needs to self-check. Not our community per se, just the gaming community at large.
I got
Yeah, you can find me at Crusader3456 on Twitter. Every gaming platform, I'm either at Crusader3456 or I'm Crusader Lord of the Realm. Reference to maybe someone will get the reference someday. Follow me on my favorite app to be followed on is Backlogged, where I keep a running journal of all the games that I'm playing, my backlog, my wish list, what I'm playing, what I've played, when I've played it. Follow me there. That's where I want people to follow me. Great show tonight.
Agreed. And just to round out the crew, of course, I'm Invader. You guys can find my content over on YouTube and a few other video platforms at Invader Gaming. Also, check me out on Twitter at Invader_1986. Also, hey, I'm on Rumble as well. Just find me at Invader Gaming, hoping to grow on there. So, hey, if you got Rumble, definitely give me a sub. Excellent stuff tonight from our crew. Timmy couldn't make it. Make sure to message him on Twitter and just politely be kind to him. No, I'm kidding. But guys, we cannot wait to see you here on the next one. There'll probably be lots of stuff to talk about. I'm already thinking of a few things as of right now. But yeah, later, guys. It's been a great one.